Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our monthly IndieCommerce webinar. I'm Geeta Nathan, and I will be the moderator. A quick note about the IndieCommerce webinar series. We have one webinar every month on various topics. Webinar topics and dates are announced in our Indie Communication, Bookselling This Week, and your website's message center. And recordings of past webinars are available on the IndieCommerce Webinar Center on bookweb.org. If you have topic suggestions for future webinars, please let us know. And today's topic is making the most of book data, presented by Matt Sepko. Some housekeeping reminders before we start. All attendees are in listen-only mode. And if you have questions during the presentation, you may type it into the questions pane of your GoToWebinar panel. The questions will be answered in the order in which they were received. There will also be time for some Q&A after the presentation. This webinar is being recorded. The slides used for the presentation will be made available to all attendees in the next couple of days. And we have a lot to cover today. So without further delay, I'm going to hand it over to Matt now. Matt, take it away. Matt, are you good to go?
Hello, I think I was stuck on mute there.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us. We are here to talk about book data today, which is obviously at the very heart of the IndieCommerce platform and what we do. It may seem a bit magic to you how it all gets there, and it is. It's actually still pretty magic to me as well. But we're going to try to demystify some of it, explain how and where we get all the data that appears on the site and how we keep it up to date and what some of the components of it are. And then we're going to walk through some tools to help you make better use of that data on your site by allowing you to sell more books or control which books you do and don't want to sell, and control when certain books become available for customers to buy, and all kinds of cool stuff like that. So to start off with, we'll take a quick look at what we're talking about when we say book data. So literally, of course, we just mean all of the information about a book. So that includes things like the ISBN, the title, who wrote it, who published it, how much it costs, cover image. There are probably 50 or 60 different data points that go into just the basics of what a book record looks like in the system. We also have things like dimensions, which are important for pulling shipping quotes, as well as the age range. And then we have, sort of more detailed information that you would only show on a product page, like the author's biography or, articles and blurbs that were written by other authors and publications praising the book. We get our book data from a bunch of different places, and there are many, many sources for it online. It's provided direct from publishers in most cases, and there are also many aggregators in the industry, which are companies that receive that data from hundreds potentially of different sources and then make it available from one place to make it easier for all of us to get access to that data. Most book data is text, but the one notable exception that's really, really important is the cover image. The cover image of a book is usually provided separately as a JPEG or a PNG file. We load all of this data directly into a system we have that we call internally at ABA, and it's not a very glamorous name, I'm sorry for that. We call it the book data system. I know, not super exciting, but that system contains about 10 million print records and about 3 to 4 million ebook records. And we use that system as the backbone of IndieCommerce, IndieLite, IndieBound. We also share information from that system with other things at ABA, like the Book Buyer's Handbook or the Bestsellers system. We have a custom system that our team at ABA uses to assemble the next list each month, and that also uses it. So the ABA book data system is something sort of bigger and more subterranean that underlies a lot of different things that we do. Obviously, IndieCommerce and IndieLite are the most visible part of it. So how does book data get to IndieCommerce? Well, the primary source we have for most of the books that you're going to see on your site is Ingram. So in addition to, carrying books in their warehouses and supplying them to bookstores, Ingram provides a function as an aggregator. So they provide data about all the books they have in their warehouses, and actually about a large number of books that they don't even carry, that they've simply received information on from publishers or other partners. And they aggregate all that data for their partners to receive and use to help promote books and sell books on their sites. So from Ingram, we get data for tens of millions of books. That includes a ton of metadata, the basic metadata I mentioned about every book, as well as a fair amount of data that is proprietary or unique to Ingram. So that includes things like their stock numbers, so that we can know when a customer buys a book, whether that's the book that's eligible to ship directly from Ingram to that customer or not. They also provide things like their desire score and family ID, which we'll explain a little bit further on in this presentation. And those are just things that Ingram specifically adds into the book data to make it easier for us and for you to identify and feature books on your site. We also receive data from publishers in a format called Onyx. So Onyx is an XML format, which is just a type of data feed that you can receive. And basically all publishers, for the most part, either provide their own Onyx or they provide it through a service that does Onyx distribution for them. Many small presses will supply their Onyx feed through their distributor. So most participants in the industry use this format. It's an industry standard format for book data, and for most cases, it's the upstream version. So, Ingram is receiving Onyx feeds. We're also getting them. Many other, e-commerce sites and people who sell books or feature them or talk about them online would also be partners who receive Onyx. But those sources are not all. There's a lot of other things that go into our system. From ABA, internally, we receive things like the Indie Next List quotes that you see every month. We load those into a database and display those on the product pages on IndieCommerce to help promote those books. We get content from various partners. NPR, we have an embedded audio player, which we'll show and talk a little more about later. We have a partnership with LitHub to display their widget, which shows reviews of new books on product pages. Of course, we get our ebook data from Kobo, and we've had that arrangement in place for many years. So we get information about which ebooks Kobo has and what the pricing is and things like that, so that we can incorporate them directly into your sites. We get that data from Kobo. And last but not least, when necessary, we crowdsource data. So we've long had a feature called Add a Book on indiebound.org. Many of you have probably used that at some point to add the whole reason it's called Add a Book is that the original purpose of it was so that you could add a book, meaning a book that was important for your store that you wanted to sell. Maybe it was a very, very, small press book of local interest, and Ingram didn't carry it, or, something like that. And obviously stores and others still use this form to do that. We also accept corrections and updates through that form. And the important thing is that if there is an issue, sometimes we'll hear directly from an author or a publisher that there was a mistake in their biography or their book's description or something like that on one of our sites. And we will offer them, they can use this form to correct that. But ultimately, we always recommend that they correct it upstream. So, if that mistake is coming in their Onyx feed from the publisher, then the next time we get that Onyx feed, we're just going to overwrite the correction. So, we always try to encourage them to make sure that they get that correction fixed, further up. And then finally, we have book data from each store. So we have local store inventory. That's our LSI feature, we call it. So that's literally books that are on hand at your store, staff reviews, your own store pricing, and other settings. So this is stuff that you contribute that's only on your site. This is stuff that's specific to you. So it's really quite a lot of different sources that we pull together to build a IndieCommerce product page. So from here, we're going to move into talking a bit about the what we call admin-only data. So these are special fields that are part of our book data system, but we don't generally make them visible. So a customer might not be able to see, and probably shouldn't be in many cases allowed to see, many of these fields. But for you, as the owner of your store and the maintainer of your site, they can help give you some important information about a book record and how it came to be the way it is. So let's look at these fields. Basically, if you are signed into your site as a store admin and you go to any product page, any book product page on the site, and you scroll down to the bottom of that page, you will see an additional field set underneath the product details that we call the admin product details. So those product details up here that include things like the ISBN, the publisher, the publication date, how many pages, that's stuff that anyone on the site can see, any customer can see that. These admin product details are only for administrators. Some of them are pretty self-evident. The Ingram discount code will tell you the discount code that we're seeing from Ingram for this book. And the Ingram on hand and on order numbers tell us this is the combined inventory that across all warehouses of Ingram that are on hand of this book or on order of this book. The other fields are a bit more interesting. So let's delve into them. The first one is what we call the price source. And this field is there to help explain, sometimes we get situations where stores have used different pricing tools on their site, and they're looking at the price of a book on their website, and they're just kind of saying, where did that price come from, right? It's not the list price, it's appearing that it's at like a slight discount or something like that, and they're just kind of saying, how did the system arrive at that price? Well, this field will tell you why your IndieCommerce site thinks the book should be sold at the price it's being listed at. There are 4 possible values for this. The first one is LSI. So that means that you are sending a price for this book in your LSI file, and your LSI is being used for pricing. So we'll talk a bit about that later when we get into LSI. The next option is the single product pricing rule. So that means that you use the built-in store pricing tools to create a pricing rule which is specifically affecting this single product. The Ingram discount code pricing rule means that you created a rule in your system for the Ingram discount code that belongs to this book, and that's what's determining the price. And then finally, we have list price, which just means the book is being sold at the publisher's list price. So that kind of just is the default. That means there aren't any other rules getting involved. So if you see a book selling at an unexpected price on your site, it can be helpful to scroll down and see what this price source field says. And that might help provide some more insight into how the system is making that choice. Family ID is a value that we get from Ingram that helps to group related books together. So when you see those related editions there at the bottom of your page, and it includes things like the ebook, the paperback, things like that, those values come in a feed from Ingram. The desire score is a value that Ingram provides that measures how high demand for a book is at the moment. And this is really, really, really helpful as far as helping to make books relevant in search results. Little side note about this, before we were using the Ingram Desire metric, we used to use the Indie bestsellers data to compute this. So we would actually figure out from the Indie bestsellers, week over week, how many copies a given book sold and how that should affect its ranking in search. Books that had more sales would be considered more relevant. The problem with that metric was that it did nothing to surface new books that have a ton of buzz. So until a book establishes a couple of weeks of strong sales, using sales as a metric to feature books doesn't get us where we need to be. The Ingram Desire metric looks at things like how many stores are ordering a book, as well as other secret sauce that they know about. And it really helps because it helps us anticipate which books are going to be in demand before they start actually selling. So this is a key criteria for ranking books in search. And we also use it for things like sorting related editions. In general, we'll put the related editions in order by that desire score, trying to put the most popular version of the paperback first. It's not uncommon for a book to have large print and abridged audio and full-length audio, and it's very helpful for sorting out which of those editions might be the most relevant as well. Series ID is somewhat similar to the family ID. It just helps connect series of a book together. Just a related change that we made to the book data system fairly recently is that we have started adding the series name into a book's title where it does not appear. And that just makes it easier for someone who's searching on your site to find that book. So for example, if the publisher sends us that the title is Diary of a Wimpy Kid number 12 Getaway, we won't add the series name to that because the series name already appears in the title. But if you take a book like The Lightning Thief, where the series name is not in the title, we would add that in so that somebody searching for Percy Jackson would find this book and others in that series. Department is the last item here in this product details field set. And department is there because we've recently added support for some sidelines from Ingram, and we're looking at adding support for other sidelines in the future. And this field helps you know when you're looking at a record on your site which department it's part of. So by default, it will say print book. We just recently included the department T at Ingram, which includes things like calendars, maps, and journals. And you have to turn this category on specifically on your site, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. All right, the next section here is about what's in many ways one of the most complex and sometimes confusing parts of our system, which is what we call availability statuses. So this refers to that little status that appears by the Add to Cart button. And this all-important status can determine whether a customer can buy a book on your site. So we're going to walk through those availability statuses from what I call most to least available, and talk about what they mean and how we define them in our system. So number one, the quote unquote best status for a book, meaning it's considered most directly available, is on our shelves now. So that status means the book is in stock at your store. And you can only see the status on your site if you are uploading LSI to your site. This supersedes all other statuses. So it doesn't matter if a book might otherwise be out of print or special order or something like that. If you send it to us and say that you have it in stock, we will always allow customers to buy it and use this status. That also includes pre-orders. So if you have a book that has not yet been released and you send LSI information that you are carrying that book currently, we will show an on our shelves now status for that. So if you want to exclude pre-order books, I would say don't include them in LSI until you're ready to release them. Important to remember about LSI, it's eligible to drop ship from Ingram if it's in stock there. So the book being in LSI doesn't preclude it being shipped from the wholesaler. The next status after on our shelves now is what we call usually ships in 1 to 5 days. So this status would apply if a book is not in stock at your store, but it is in stock at one or more of Ingram's warehouses. So these books are eligible to drop ship direct from Ingram if a customer buys them. So in general, that's considered a really favorable situation for a book. If somebody buys it, you know you can get it. So this is sort of our number two. Maybe you don't have it on the shelves currently, but if somebody buys it, it should be very easy to get them a copy. Number three, the next status down is what we call back ordered. So these would be books that are not in stock at your store, and they are not currently in stock at any of Ingram's warehouses, but they are on order at Ingram. So in many cases, this would include popular books where the publisher just didn't quite print enough to meet demand at the time. So if a publisher has run out of copies but is printing more, that would be a common reason why it would appear in this status. Whether back-ordered books are available for purchase depends on your special order settings. So we're going to talk about that when we get into those special order settings a little further on here today. The next status is special order. So this is a sort of catch-all status in our system. That is to say, these are for books that are not in stock at your store, they're not in stock at Ingram, they're not on order at Ingram, and we have no further information about whether they're available. So in other words, we don't know that they're not available, but we don't know that they are available. So This status would typically apply to books that are, self-published or available from very small presses who are not reporting, via Onyx feeds or anything like that. In other words, Ingram may not carry the title, but it may be available through the publisher or the author or other sources. We just don't have any firm information on it. A step below special order on the availability spectrum is what we're now calling hard to find. So hard to find books are not in stock at your store. They're not in stock at Ingram. They're not on order at Ingram. And unlike the special order status, we have specific information that we got either from Ingram or the publisher that this book is out of stock indefinitely. So in this particular case, it's not being reprinted so far as we know, but the publisher hasn't removed it from their catalog. It could still come back out or something may happen with it. But we know that there isn't going to be any more of it anytime soon. So we mark these as hard to find. A step below hard to find is, of course, out of print. So these are books that have similar properties, no copies in stock anywhere, and we have specific information from Ingram or from the publisher that this book is specifically out of print. This is generally end of life for a book. Out of print books are not available for sale. And believe it or not, there's actually a status below out of print, and I'm just going to we just call it unavailable. So these are books where we've specifically received a communication from Ingram or from the publisher that this book should be deleted. So these books don't appear on the site at all. They look like they're invisible. And this would generally include canceled titles, titles subject to legal or copyright dispute. Sometimes we will get takedown notices that book uses a copyright, a book has been plagiarized or something, and anybody who's found trying to sell it is going to be sued by the angry author. So, stuff like that is what would fall into this bucket. These are books that are not available at all. In addition to those book statuses for books that are currently for sale, we have two pre-order statuses. And understanding the difference between these is becoming increasingly important as authors and publishers and everybody else is really putting more and more and more emphasis on getting those early pre-orders locked in. So let's look at these statuses and how they work. The first one is what we call coming soon, available for pre-order now. And these are books that are not in stock at your store. The publication date is in the future. They are available for customers to purchase. And the important thing to know is that the timing of when they become available can be configured by your store. Now, the default on IndieCommerce, going back to the very beginning of the program, has been 120 days or about 4 months. So within 4 months, books that were going to come out would become available for order. And back in the day, the thinking with this was that certain details of a book that hasn't been released yet can change. Sometimes the book could be canceled altogether, or the price could change. There were various reasons why it was considered not always a great idea to sell books too far out. But these days, many authors are just getting out there on social media, the minute their book is publicly announced, and they're wanting to direct people to buy their book and lock in that pre-order and go ahead and get that sale. So we are definitely seeing more requests from stores to be able to sell these books sooner, and there are a couple of options for that and how to do it, which we'll talk about coming up. That other status is that sort of outside that old 4-month window is what we have called not yet published. So these books are not in stock at your store. They have a publication date much further in the future, historically 4 months or beyond, but that's now configurable. There's a store setting that determines whether or not these books are available for customers to purchase. And as I mentioned, that timing can be configured by your store. So let's dive into how you can actually change some of these settings and make your site work the way that you really need it to. To start off with, we're going to look at a couple of the settings on the store preferences page. So this is under configuration, account information, and preferences. And it looks like this. For many years, this page has been a catch-all for a variety of different settings for your store. We're not going to go through every setting on this page because many of them are not directly related to book data. We're going to focus on the ones that are. So the single most important setting on this page as it pertains to books is your choice whether or not to sell special order. As we mentioned, special order books are books where we just don't know if they're available or not. And I've found it varies widely from store to store whether a given store wants to deal with taking such orders. Some stores want to try to run down anything a customer is interested in buying, and others don't want the hassle of booking orders for a book that turns out not to be available to be shipped. So it's entirely up to you whether you want to sell these or not. You can check these on or off on this page. Now, here's the thing you may not know about this, and that is that whether you decide to sell special order or not will have an impact on whether you can choose to sell back ordered or hard to find. So this chart here attempts to kind of explain how this works. Historically, we only had one category, special order, and recently we broke it into these two new categories, back ordered and hard to find. So if you allow special order books to be sold, then back ordered books are always available through the site. They're considered a higher, more available category of special order. On the other hand, if you choose not to sell special ordered books, then by default, you will not be selling back ordered either. But there's another setting, which we'll look at shortly, that you can turn on in order to sell back ordered only. Similarly, if you sell special order books, then by default, you will also be able to sell hard to find books. But if you want to specifically prevent customers from being able to buy hard to find books, you can turn those off. If you don't sell special order, hard to find books will never be available for sale on your site because we know those are not easy to get. There's also a preference on this page for not yet published. And basically, if you check this on, that will allow you to sell books that are not yet published, regardless of when they're coming out. So you can think of this as a pre-order setting that has no limit. If you check this on, as soon as we get data about a book in our system, it might not come out for 2 years. Somebody could buy it through your site. This is an older setting, still useful for many stores. And if you always want to be able to sell a book, no matter how far out from publication it is, by all means, utilize it. But we have a newer setting that moves that coming soon window, and we're going to look at that shortly. Finally, there's a preference here on this store preferences page to show a larger cover image. These days, with people getting bigger and bigger screens and phones that have twice the resolution of an old phone and things like that, it's probably a good idea to check this on. When you turn it on, it just does what you see here in the pictures. It makes your little thumbnail appear much larger on the product page. Okay, so the next menu we're going to dive into of settings is the Configure Book Settings menu. So this is a much newer page in our system, and we've been putting book settings here lately as we've added more and more of them. And we will probably continue to do that in the future. So here's a quick look at what this page looks like when you click through to it. And the first thing you'll see is there's a large field set at the top called Book Availability Statuses. So this is a place in your site where you can customize the language that is shown to customers for each different availability status. So we just walked through, all 9 of them. And if you would rather not say usually ships in 1 to 5 days, you'd rather call it something else, you can edit that here and your changes will appear everywhere on your site. So product pages, search results, book lists, everywhere. You can also have a different on our shelves now status for search results and lists versus what's on the product detail page. And that feature is often used by stores that have multiple outlets in order to add an extra, like click to see which locations have this book message. In the future, we're going to work on adding outlet data directly to search results. So maybe we won't need that as much, but for now, if you want to make sure that customers are checking carefully whether books are available at the location they're going to go to, this can be a useful tool to help with that. Okay, so here we come to the pre-order setting I've been talking about. Further down on this page, you will find a setting that says allow pre-order of books within And here you can choose what window you want to allow for pre-orders. And this specifically lets you control when a book's status changes from not yet published to coming soon. So coming soon books are always available for customers to buy. The not yet published are only available if you choose that not yet published setting. Because we don't like to change things by surprise on stores, we've left the default setting at 4 months because it's always been there. But we definitely recommend that stores choose a more generous window to capitalize on that initial marketing push for a book. So as you can see, your options are, you can actually go a little further down to 3 months, or you can choose 6 months, 9 months, a year, or unlimited. And if you choose unlimited, then that not yet published status basically will never appear on your site. So you will always have coming soon available for pre-order now. So this setting combined with that not yet published setting can help you control what messages customers see about how far out a book is. And if you want to sell books that are maybe 9 months from publication, but not 13, you can not sell not yet published and move this window up a bit. So hopefully this gives you more control over when books are available for sale. The next setting on this page controls related editions. So we always show all of the related editions of a book at the bottom of a product page, but you can use this setting to also show them, basically repeat some at the very top of the product page. So you can have anywhere from 0 to 4 or even all of them appear up at the top. It's just up to you. Some sites feel like it adds clutter. Others want to feature it alongside the main add to cart area. So it's mostly just an aesthetic choice. The final preference, or excuse me, the next preference on this page is whether you want to sell what we're calling Ingram's department code T. So this is a new feature on the site. We just added it in the last couple of weeks. And this department includes about 10,000 products, which are calendars, maps, blank books, and other book-like sideline items. So that's things like journals and day planners and cool stuff like that. Again, because we don't want to throw anything at stores that they're not expecting, these products don't appear on your site until you check this box. So because we haven't had them before, we didn't want to just push them out automatically. So if you want to turn them on, you just have to check this box and save the page, and they'll be available for sale. We may add other categories of sideline here in the future too. NPR stories. This preference just governs whether or not NPR content appears on your product pages. Basically, NPR, if they cover a book as part of one of their shows, Morning Edition or All Things Considered or something like that, they will often provide a little audio player where someone could listen to that segment. So this only appears if NPR has a story about the book, and we get updates from NPR daily. So if you want to show them, just make sure this setting is on, and if a book in your system, book on your site has a story, it'll automatically be there. The LitHub bookmarks widget works the same way. The only difference about it is that instead of digital audio, it provides excerpts from popular reviews of this book, and it kind of aggregates them. So it will say how positive and were reviews for each given book that's on your site. These are actually served live from LitHub, so they're updated in real time. Okay, the next settings here help you control the hard to find and back order sales, and which setting you'll see depends on what you have chosen about special order books. So if you have decided that you want to allow people to buy special order books, then you will see a checkbox here that says prevent hard to find. So the default setting, if you allow special order books to be sold, is that hard to find books can also be sold. If you want to stop that from happening and only sell special order, back ordered, and usually ships in 1 to 5, you can check this box, and those hard to find books, the add to cart button will go away. On the other hand, if you have decided not to sell special order titles, you will get a checkbox on this page that says allow back order sales. And if you turn this on, that will allow those back ordered books to be sold. Meanwhile, the special order and hard to find will remain unavailable for purchase through the site. Okay, next we're going to talk about LSI settings. So these are settings that only apply if you are uploading local store inventory to your site, whether you do that by hand or through your own FTP or through Treeline. So the first preference here is the fulfillment cascade priority. Basically, enable this preference if you want to be the first responder on LSI items. By default, we shop orders on your site to Ingram if Ingram has the book in stock. This setting will allow you to review it first if you have the book in your LSI. Now, you can still decide to manually send the book to Ingram when processing the order. LSI doesn't prevent you from using wholesaler fulfillment for those titles. So if you want to keep the copy on the shelf in the store and have Ingram drop ship direct to the customer, you can still choose to do that. This setting just basically lets you prevent that from automatically going to Ingram so you can review it first and decide how you want to handle it. The LSI pricing rules will, if you turn this on, it will use the prices that you supply in your LSI on your site. If you disable it, it'll ignore those altogether. So it's really just a matter of whether you want to use your, generally stores would use this if they want to use their point of sale system pricing across their site. Note that if you have this checked on, then the prices you send us in LSI will supersede all other pricing logic on the site. So that includes, pricing by Ingram discount code as well as those single product rules. So if you want to be able to price a book differently on your website than it is in your LSI, and you just want to do this for a couple of books, we do have a preference that's called Web Discounts Override Inventory Pricing. And if you turn that on, then you can create single product pricing rules, and we will use those instead of your LSI prices for those books. That can be useful if you're doing online only sales or vice versa. Maybe you're selling a book at a lower price in the store, but you don't want to sell it that way on your website. These tools give you control over that. And LSI pricing, if you have it on, is going to always override pricing rules by discount code. Again, the assumption is that if you have the book in your store and you've priced it for sale in the store, you're going to want to carry that logic through unless you create a web discount specifically. The use LSI availability preference just will make the site look at whether the book is in LSI rather than whether what the book status is otherwise. So enabling this feature will allow you to sell books in your inventory that are like special order, hard to find, or even out of print, but only if they're in your inventory. If you leave this off, then it's just going to ignore that. And if a book is hard to find or out of print, it's not going to let you sell it. It's not going to let a customer buy it, even if it's in your inventory. Most sites generally want to leave this setting on. Hide quantity on hand for LSI is pretty simple. It does what it says. Sometimes stores want to show if a book is in stock, but they don't want to show how many copies. So if you turn this on, it's just going to hide those quantity numbers so that instead of saying 3 on hand, 5 on hand, it will simply say on hand at, and then your outlet. The final setting on this screen is called LSI only. And basically what I want to say about that is that it's a very experimental feature. It's not recommended for existing stores. What it does is it hides every book on your site that isn't in LSI. And there are a lot of ramifications to that. It can hurt your search ranking if Google has indexed books and then they disappear. So, in general, it's not something we would recommend stores turn on. It's something we've been experimenting with for specialized retailers who may not carry a full inventory of books. One last item on LSI. Question we get sometimes: what happens if I send a 0 quantity for a book to LSI? We actually still process books from LSI files that have a quantity of 0. They won't show as on hand, but we still apply search boosts. We still apply LSI pricing rules, and we do not apply availability. So if you send us a book and say you have 0 copies, and you send us a different price, we'll show that price instead of the list price. But if you say that, but if that book happens to be hard to find or out of print and you have 0 on hand, customers still won't be able to buy it. We're going to take a quick look at some advanced store pricing settings. So something that many stores set early on in their training and then may not revisit, but is actually used pretty widely on the site, is the price message that gets displayed for those unavailable titles. So this is actually found on that net discount page under store pricing and then books and then net discount setting. And the default says email or call for price. But this applies to all books you choose not to sell directly through the site, not just net books. So that means things like special order, hard to find, out of print. If you're not making those available for direct sale, it's going to show this message. So if you want to modify it, this is where you would do it. Then we have not for sale, which is books not sold at all. So here you have to upload a file. It's just a text file with an ISBN per line. And anything you send us in this file, we will display a different message saying that this item is not available for sale at all. So, this is a feature, somewhat different from a book that might be simply hard to get. This is a book that for whatever reason your store has chosen not to ever sell. And that's what this feature does. We're going to talk quickly about adjusting the search algorithm. This is a page, looks like this. Warning, advanced use only. It's very easy to mess your site up using this feature. We periodically push updates to the search algorithm. In just the past year, we've pushed several. And if you've established your own settings, you may not always receive those updates. But the good news is that you can always toggle these custom settings on and off, and you can always reset to defaults. So this feature lets you control how the search engine ranks books on your site. And it can be fun to experiment with. And there are a couple of reasons, which I'll talk about at the end, that why stores might use this. For the most part, we do recommend that stores use the default search settings because, like I said, we're always pushing improvements to them as we go. But if you want to try it, you just have to toggle the override ABA defaults checkbox here, and then you can start entering your custom settings. There's also a checkbox that says debug search, and this adds a search score to each search result on your site. Only admins can see it, so don't worry if you turn this on, a customer won't be able to see the score. The score doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot by itself, but only in relation to other search results. So if I run a search for The Hobbit and its score is 13.926, and then I run a search for The Lord of the Rings and its search score is 8, that doesn't necessarily mean that one book was more relevant or less relevant. You really just have to look at that score in relation to other books within the same set of search results. So I'll go over very briefly what the different things you can control in search are. There's quite a lot of them, and we add more periodically. We look at things like the strictness, the keyword relevance. In other words, do all the keywords have to match? If somebody types in, 4 or 5 words, do we have to match all of them or just 1 or 2? Whether we stem the keywords, phrase slop looks at how close they are together. These are all kind of pretty advanced, search logic functions. I generally don't recommend messing around with those too much. Other things that may be more interesting to mess around with include the boosts for books that are in stock or coming soon, books that have a regular discount code at Ingram, products, you can boost products based on their desire score. We already do this, but you could bump it up further or take it out if you don't want it. There's a recency boost, which boosts books based on how recently they came out. And the last two are the ones that stores generally find the most benefit from working with, and that's the custom products and the in stock at your store. Stores that really want to emphasize custom products will go in sometimes and boost that custom product score. So that will just help things that you created, your unique products, appear higher than their regular print equivalents in some cases. And the in stock at your store, for any site that's using LSI, we apply a pretty generous boost to that by default, but some stores like to take it a little further. My thoughts on this, it's difficult, if not impossible, to achieve the right balance for every possible search. The default settings we put in place are designed to balance new and best-selling books and to favor searches by specifically title or author. The default search settings we have don't perform great for generic searches. So if you're just looking for a book about something, but you're not looking for a specific title or a specific author, you could probably adjust the algorithm to surface different things. But by doing that, you would hurt the relevance for title and author searches. So it's very, very difficult to get that balance just right. A few words about ebooks and digital audio. We have integrations currently with Kobo for ebooks and with Libro FM for digital audiobooks. We have some pretty cool updates to the Libro FM integration coming soon, which I'm going to show you on the next slide. And for the longer term, we're currently discussing with other partners and working to make our system easier to extend. The idea is that we want to allow our members to be able to choose, ebook and audiobook providers and to be able to change them out on your site if you wish. So the way we're thinking of looking at doing it is that stores would be able to have an ebook partner and a digital audiobook partner. That could be two different companies, or it could be one for both if your partner is a company that offers both. So we're currently working with some other companies out there to add these integrations into the site and let stores do more with it. And they're all going to be kind of standard. The idea is that they would all work similarly. So here's a look at how the Libro integration is changing. The get the audiobook, what's now a link, is going to become a button on the product page. We're going to be adding a new block that will allow customers to search directly for audiobooks. And we're adding another block that explains the Libro audiobook membership program and provides a link to learn more about it. So the thing with these blocks, of course, is that you can put them anywhere on your site or not use them if you don't want to, but they'll be there ready for you to use if you are a Libro participant. Okay, one last thing. We are going to take a quick look at creating a view to showcase these Ingram Sidelines. So I'm talking in this instance about those department code T products that have recently been added to sites. As soon as we added them, we realized that stores might want a way to explore what this, what did I just do? So I checked this box, what's new? What just happened on my site? So we're going to just walk you through quickly how to create a simple view using Drupal's views feature to examine what's in category T. And with a little work, you could even turn this into a page that you could market and let customers browse and buy from. There's basically 4 steps. Create a new view displaying print books. You add a filter by type and set it equal to Ingram T. Then you can add any fields that you want to. And then just to make a very simple, most popular products first, you could sort by the desire descending. So I'm going to bounce out of my slideshow and show you what this view looks like and how you can build it. So here we are looking at my dev site. I'll blow this up a little bit so it's easier to see. And here is my Ingram T view that I created. So you can see that many of the most popular products are notebooks, road atlas, some maps, and things like that. Here's a calendar. These are all new products that came in with that category. So to create this view, you would just go to Views, say Add New View, and you can call it anything you like. Ingram T is fine. Under Show, make sure that you choose ABA Products and then ABA Print Books. From here, you can just continue and edit the page. Oh, I already have a view called that. And I'm going to just remove, by default, it just pulls this abridged field in because it's the first field alphabetically. So I'm just going to remove that because it isn't important to me. And instead, I'm going to add the title field, which is just going to show me the name of the product. And the other important piece, under filter criteria, I just say add. And I want to look for the type filter, not binding type, but just type, just the plain word type. And add it. And I just want to make sure that it's set equal to Ingram-T. That's Ingram with a lowercase I and a capital T. Don't ask me why. I did it, my fault. And that will start showing you these products. So from here, it's just a matter of playing with it. You can add more fields. I had added the cover image and the add to cart link. You can add sort criteria, all kinds of things like that. So hopefully this just could get you started exploring some of the products that are in there that are new to the site with this feature. And I know this ran a bit longer than we might have hoped for, so I wanted to leave a little time for questions, and I think we've got that now.
Thank you, Matt. That was a great presentation, very informative, and there's a lot of details in that webinar. And for those of you who are worried that you did not get every information from that, we will be posting the recording of the webinar and also the slideshows that Matt used for the presentation. And we do have a few questions. First, while you are on this test site, could you show, there's a question about where those two configuration pages are, the store preference
absolutely.
and the book settings. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I'm logged in as an ABA admin, so my menus are going to look a little different from yours. I have some extra stuff in there, but the links are the same. So the store configuration, and then under account information and preferences, we have a store preferences link. You can actually see in the slides, which we're going to post online after this presentation, before each section, I actually will kind of show this tree with the link that you would click circled. So hopefully that would help make it a little easier too. So that's where the store preferences are. And the book settings are actually in the very same place, just a little further down. So it'd be store configuration and then configure book settings. And that takes you to the page with all of the availability statuses and that pre-order window that you can control, and the NPR and Ingram-T and all that other stuff.
The next question, how is setting up the Ingram-T view different than just letting customers know they can search for calendars or journals? What's the benefit of creating the new view? I guess this is from someone who is just starting to use views on their site. Matt, do you want to?
You don't have to create the view. You could use the view for customers. I had thought of it more as a way for you as the store owner to explore what's in this category. Basically, to me, the view helps answer the question, I click this checkbox, what happened, right? So that you can kind of see, okay, these are the new products that are part of the site. What would be one reason it could be helpful for merchandising to customers is, let's say that you created the view the way I described it. So you limit it to the sidelines and you sort those by desire, then it's going to automatically update. So if the Moleskine journal isn't the best-selling journal in 6 months, something different is going to be at the top of it, because that view is always looking in real time at the data that's coming out of our system. If you make a page by hand on your site where you feature 10 or 12 calendars and you don't update it, then it's going to continue to show those same 10 or 12 calendars indefinitely. But if you do it with views, then, as products cycle through, because that desire score is going to go up or down over time. So, the 2018 calendars are going to tank in desire, and the 2019 calendars are going to shoot up. And then a couple months later, 2019 calendars are going to start to go down, and the 2020 calendars are going to start to go up. So, if you're not super concerned about featuring specific calendars or specific items in the category, the view can kind of dynamically feature stuff for you.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, Shirley, to add to that, yes, as Matt mentioned, the view is a way for you to create dynamic content on your website. You can also create it like a grid, or you can create it as a block, you can create it as a page. So it gives you the option to showcase the sidelines in different ways on your website. The next question is, how often is the data updated on IndieCommerce sites?
Book data is updated constantly. Our book data system is basically querying all of our partners continuously to see if they are pushing any updates out to anything. So it really never sleeps.
It doesn't, right?
Yeah, we know about that.
Even when we are sleeping, it's working.
Yes, absolutely. And especially in the case of LSI, I didn't mention it during our presentation, but we've made a lot of enhancements to LSI lately to improve the speed at which we get that out onto sites. And don't quote me on this. We try to set expectations a bit lower, but in general, if you are uploading LSI through your site or via FTP, it should be a matter of like a minute or two between when you upload a file now and when you get that data out on your site. So it really never stops.
The next question is, how about non-book sideline products that are not sold via Ingram?
So it depends a lot on how you want to handle it. Traditionally, I would say, Geeta, that's something we would recommend that stores create as custom products.
Yes, they yes. Yep, Connie. This is from Connie Brooks. Yes, Connie, if you want to sell non-book sideline products that are not sold via Ingram, anything that you do not find on your website, you can go ahead and create them as a custom product. You can upload images, you can set the price, and you can sell them on your website.
Right. Of course, we always have the add a book form where you can add books to the book data system or other records, but it's important to remember that when you do that, that makes it available to every site. So if it's something that is only carried in your store, or if it's something that maybe doesn't have a standard list price, where it might be sold at whatever price a store chooses to put on it, that's something we try to be sensitive about pushing out everywhere.
The next question is from Kathy. Did you say Libro FM was a block we could use? Kathy, yes, it is. It will be a block. We are actually testing it and adding some fine tweaks to it. But right now you don't have it, but you can expect it in the next couple of weeks. So you will have two blocks that you can place. One is for searching the audiobooks on Libro FM. The other one is any promotional material. Right now they have the membership listed there. So those will be two separate blocks. You can either enable both or just one. And the search block, the way it works is when someone puts in a keyword search in that form, it will take the customer to your Libro FM white label site with the search results, and they will make the purchase, and it will still be affiliated to your store. And the next one, okay. Is there any way to tell if the books online are first editions or first printing?
I would say first printing is not really information that we do get. The edition is, I guess I just have to admit I really can't answer that question with confidence.
Okay, that's.
I think
I don't want to give that information. Yeah, I don't want to give that information.
Yeah, I don't want to give out bad information. I think to me, first edition would mean the first, available edition of a book. So, that would be information that you could work out on your own and get the ISBN, and that would be, the hardcover or something. Printing, I definitely know that we can't speak to confidence as to which printing of a book might ship.
The next one is a follow-up question to the Libro FM blog. Will there be a message when the Libro blogs are live? Sarah, yes, we will make an announcement in the Indie Communication, and there will be an announcement in Bookselling this week before we launch that, definitely. The next question is, how does a book get assigned a BISAC and how can it be changed?
BISAC code is assigned by the publisher. So when we would process an Onyx feed or when Ingram would load the book into their database, that information is all coming upstream from the publisher. So the publisher is choosing which BISAC codes are associated with the book. If you disagree with the publisher and you want to file the book differently, which certainly can happen, or maybe you think they misassigned it, that would be something that I would consider, and it would be an upstream conversation because we receive that data from the publisher. So if a store changes a BISAC code and then the publisher changes it and the two changes are different, it becomes hard for us to say which change are we going to take. So we've made the choice that we're going to treat publishers' data as the definitive data on a book, and that's how Ingram's going to handle it in their system too. So if a publisher sets a BISAC code and you want to use something different, you might just have to find a way to categorize it on your site.
Okay. How do we create a signed copy of a book and differentiate it from the regular book?
We just did that webinar a couple months ago.
Yes.
Go
ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say we have a feature called the Store Books feature, which you can have IndieCommerce staff enable on your website. It's designed to do exactly that. So it allows you to create what are effectively copies of new books for sale that are signed or used or otherwise differentiated from those copies and make them available on your site. So we have a whole help section on BookWeb about it, as well as I think it was 2 or 3 webinars ago, I did a webinar on the Store Books feature that you could check out.
And how can we add a book to the IndieCommerce database?
So if you have a book that you'd like to add, you can do that through indiebound.org. Basically, just go to the indiebound.org website, and if you don't already have an account, you can just scroll down to the bottom of the site, and there's a create account link. It's free to sign up. There's no, you just have to have any account on the site. I'll just sign in real quick, but once you create your account and you sign in, we have a page called Add a Book. So you just go to indiebound.org/add a book, and we have a form here that asks for all of the standard information about your book. So just the important thing to remember is that your book has to have an ISBN. We don't allow books in the system that don't have an ISBN currently. And anything you add here is going to show up across the platform. So if it's something that is exclusive to your store that other stores would not be able to sell, we would ask you not to add that here. This form is for for books that anybody could sell.
Okay. I think we have time for one last question. Let me do that. Okay, to go over creating the view for the Ingram T books, Matt, if you want to just quickly walk through the initial steps, or I think once this is set up, we just launched it recently, the Ingram T and the view for creating the Ingram T items. We will create a document with the clear steps on how to create that view, and we will share it with all our members. Okay, and I think we are perfect timing. We are just 4 minutes over. And let me do a quick check to see if there were any more questions. Nope, I think we are good. Thank you, Matt. That was a great presentation with lots of information. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And if you have any questions, please write to staff@bookweb.org. And you will receive a follow-up email with links to the recording and also a place where you can download these slides from. And thank you, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody.